And welcome again to PWS USA's 2021 Hopes on the Horizon virtual convention. I hope that you have been enjoying the sessions. And our next talk is going to be from Dr. Norbert Stutebeck. Norbert Stutebeck. Norbert is a psychologist and psychotherapist and supervisor in Germany. He's the project manager for Prader-Willi syndrome and obesity for a foundation in Northwest Germany. He is the CEO of the Prader-Willi Syndrome Institute in Germany, and he's the chair of the Providers Board at IPSO. His interest in research is focused on empathy, change in perspective in Prader-Willi syndrome, and the development and evaluation of training programs. With that, I would like to invite Norbert Stutebeck, and so that he can give his talk.
Thank you so much, Jim. I hope you can hear me and all the things works. And thank you very much for the introduction and inform about the things I'm doing just in this moment. And I'm very thankful to have the chance to inform about the things we do here in Germany. And I think a little bit special in the institution I'm working for, because they are the most information I have. But I will give this information about the things in Germany in PWS, a little bit about the development, and also what happens in the time or what changed in the time of the pandemic. And the last information I collect today, so I'm just in time with the information I will give you and I can give you. Okay, so, but now I think you should see my slides, so it makes it easier to go through these things. So, I think this way it should work. So before I go through the things we have here in Germany, we developed over the last 20, 25 years, I am interested to inform you about the fundamental attitudes or the philosophy of taking care of people with Prader-Willi here in Germany, and maybe not for all these companies which take care or have offers for PWS, but especially in our company, we develop these things and we try to work in the way of realizing these attitudes, these goals. And one of these is, we think, or I think, it is necessary to reach for the highest knowledge about PWS and therefore using the worldwide network. So, because if the staff, if parents have a high level of knowledge, I think we do not make so much mistakes. The other thing is, we have to train and we have to support people with PWS by trainings. So this is what we saw over the years, that we do these things with them, and it brings so intensive changes and increasing of competences if we do this, especially for them. And also the trainings for the staff. That the goal is to develop high competences of the staff, and later I will show you or give you an overview what this means concrete. The other thing is that we have to accept, or we have to realize and accept the individuality of each of the one with the syndrome. So this is what we changed over the years. I think we start in a way that we do many things similar to the people with Prader-Willi, because we thought that this could be the way, but we learned it more and more. We have to accept and to realize the individuality. And this means that maybe a person with PWS, we do support them, or there is a very, very low support. And we see that by a low support, there's a minimum. But on the other hand, we can train and support someone, but there's a maximum, and we have to accept this maximum. And maybe there's a second one with Prader-Willi, and by his genes and by his genes, there's a different and the different means, or what I mean with this is that there is also a maximum with the training and the support we do, and sometimes we see these different by people which are living together, and if we do not realize that they're individual maximums, then we overwhelm some of them. The other thing, what I think or what we think is a fundamental attitude, is we have to be very transparent in the communication with them. So what we see and what we saw over the time, and also in the pandemic time, is if we are transparent and if we are open to them and explain the things which happens, it makes it easier for them and for us, and for living together. The other thing, which is a basic thing in taking care of people with Prader-Willi, is to allow and to give them the chance to be successful in the things they do, and that so that they can develop the feeling of being proud of themselves. This is what we all heard, but on the other thing, I think it is also necessary to allow them to make experience of failures. So, because then, and if we support them by handling these things and reflect these things, then they have the chance to learn. If we always protect and overprotect them, then we give them not the chance to handle negative experiences, and that's a part of life. And if they want to be more and more independent, then they need to learn to handle these things. Another basic statement or part of our philosophy is to include people by finding solutions and by developing their environment and finding solutions for challenging behaviors, and developing the frameworks where they are living, the living environment. And as more we do this over the last years, this is not what we did at the beginning, but now over the last years, we see that we have less of conflicts with them because they are not against things which they develop by their own. And I think the main thing of these fundamental attitudes of the philosophy of taking care of people with Prader-Willi is that we have to support them by moving from dependent from or on others, these external control, and coming to self-determination, self-control. And what this means, I will show in these pictures. So when we were born, we are totally we have a very high need of external control, but over the time, the goal is, and this is what we want and what we saw by our lives, I hope, is that we are more and more overcome this external control. And on the other hand, when we are born, our level of self-determination is very low, or by 0. But over the time, this is what we want, and this is what makes us self-esteem, is if we get more and more competent of self-determination, this is the way we want. And the same is the goal for people with Prader-Willi. So if we bring these lines together and we realize the individuality, then maybe we could see someone with 33 years, which have developed by different circumstances a very low level of self-control. And the consequence for this one, there needs to be a very much higher level of external control. And when we transfer this to a living setting, then this living setting must be more signed by external control. And there could be someone with 19 with a higher level, or maybe someone with 22, which have a very high level of self-control. And this one needs a very less level of external control. And you can imagine that he needs and he wants a very different kind of environment for living. And so this is a little bit the thing I mean with these things of realize and know the individuality and know about the levels and the competences they are. We have to use different kind of things for this, maybe testing, maybe behavior analysis and all these things to realize and to know what is the point where they are. And what we need to know is how do we come to the next step? How do we can support them to the goal of more self-control and in the way of more self-esteem? So these are the basic things we try to develop more and more here, and these are the basic things we want to work on, and we want to so in this way we want to support people with Prader-Willi. We will see what we can do with these in 10 or 20 years. And by the way, when we start, I think our way was totally different. We are much more focused on we have to control them, we have to support them. We know what is good for them. And this is something what changed totally over the last, I think, 5 or 10 years here. So taking care of people with Prader-Willi in Germany. You know, Germany have nearly 82 million inhabitants, have 16 different states, and statistically we have nearly 5,000 people with Prader-Willi. I think by the German Association and by all the companies which takes care, I think we know maybe 1,000 or 1,000, maybe 1,500, but this is the maximum. And in this moment, we are not sure where the others are, maybe at home, maybe in different institutions, but we are not sure where they are. But what we saw over the last 20 years is that the knowledge of them and the contact with them will grow up year over year. So we hope in 10 or 20 years that we are in contact with 50% of them or more. The situation when I started to work together with people with Prader-Willi in 1996 in this area, the situation in Germany was that there was an address and there was a small and good working but small association in Germany, and there were only some clinics or hospitals which make a diagnostic about Prader-Willi. There are only few people which have knowledge about it. When I was in contact the first time with someone with Prader-Willi, there were only 3 places in Germany or 3 people in Germany I could travel to and could talk about. And this was a unknowledged situation here in Germany at this time. When I go to the situation actually here in Germany in 2021, so maybe 25 years later, we have the following situation. So these 3 dots you see here, these are the offers, the group homes for children and youth up to the time when they leave school. These are only 3 group homes we have. And they are, yes, they are for children. And these are 3 groups which have between 6 and 8 places. In one group home, there is a situation that 4 children with PWS, and in this house are 4 others with intellectual disability and obesity. The next dots, the red dots, this is the situation for the adults in Germany in these days. So you see that you have a situation which I think in the first view it looks good. So maybe you have every 100, 150 kilometer an offer for adult people with Prader-Willi, but there are some space, and I will focus it a little bit later. If you live here in the northeast in Germany, then you have 300 kilometers to here, 300 to here, and if there is no free space, then you have to use 500 or 800 kilometers to the next free space, and this is a long distance for families, and they do not accept. But it is really, I think, a little bit in the US or in other countries. Each state here in Germany have their own rules, and it is not so simple to open new group homes. What I can describe a little bit more detailed are the the offers we have in the company I'm working for here in this part in North Rhine-Westphalia, and we take care of these red dots and the yellow dots. I will show you some pictures of these offers. And what you see here, is not the first offer we have, or we start with. The first was in 1998. It was an old castle in a very rural countryside. And after 1 year, we decide not to stay there because it's too much away from community things. So people always needs one from the staff to drive to a shop or to a discotheque or something like this. So then in 2000, 2 years later, we opened up this house. It is a normal house. 6 people are in this part of the building, and this building we built up 2 years later. So there is an apartment, and we start there with a couple, and this was the reason why we built it up. And these are adults in this house, and today there are 6 and 2 places. And these 2 things we built up, you see, some years later, when more and more people ask for living asking for places. And at this time, at 2009 in Germany, it was only possible by government, and most of the money is coming from the government, to build up houses with 24 people inside. And these buildings are the same buildings, but they are 200 kilometers from each other. We decide to have 12 people in the first floor and 12 people of different handicaps in the ground floor, and in the first floor 12 people with PWS. Yeah, and in this building too. We know that this is a big number, and what we try and what we did is we split this first floor in a 6, 4, and 2 unit. So this works better, but at the end there are 12 people at one floor, and at the end, or years later or today, I'm happy that we do not have to build up houses like these. And later, or a little bit later, I show you the things we do today. This one is another, or this one and this one. These 3 are houses where people live in apartments. And you see, these things are built up a little bit later or rent a little bit later. Here in this building, we have the first and the second floor for people with Prader-Willi in apartments of two, and one group, a group of 4 people. And in the third floor, there are people from the city without handicaps. And the same is in this big building. We have, I think, 42 apartments, and one apartment, there's living someone with Prader-Willi. And this building, there we have 6 apartments inside, and each apartment have 2 places. And this building is only used by people with Prader-Willi. So you see, this was a little bit the development after 2009, and the latest thing, and not the absolute latest thing is we started this week, so I have no picture, but this is a good example of what we use today. And these are more and more apartments where people live by their own in one apartment. Here in this building, it's an interesting thing because, or it's a new thing for us. In the ground floor, there are people with obesity and intellectual disabilities or handicap. And in the first floor, there are 2 in this building and 2 in this building. In the first floor, people with Prader-Willi. So in an apartment of 2. And these 2 pictures are the houses for the children. We start in 2010 and built the second in 2014. When I started the work with people with Prader-Willi, I thought we should not open things for children. So, and my thought was we should support the families, and we should go in the families and develop support and structures for these. But at some point, there were situations where no support in the family was possible because the family was not really there. We have very problematic situations by some children, and then we decide to open up these. And up to this time, we have these 2 places. And you remember there's one other in one other state in Germany, but not more. These are the things we have. And overall in Germany, we have at this moment 16 places or locations in Germany with overall, I think, 40 group homes from places of 4 to 35 places in one group home with 24-hour service. And overall, I think in Germany around 500 to 550 around. And only 2 services have these apartment living service, where 1 or 2 people are in one apartment. And this service system is individually defined numbers of hours per day. So these are 24 hours, and always people are there from the staff, and here only for some hours. The idea for the future is that we have in Germany maybe group homes of 6 people, not more, in separate houses or in houses with other people with handicaps, PWS or others, or smaller units. And I think a very good number is 3 or 4 in a group home, separate or with others, with other handicaps or with other people with Prader-Willi. And the other thing is the focus is on the apartments, to have these maybe in a house with others with PWS, maybe in a house with others of other handicaps, or apartment in a house with others without handicaps, as you saw in one of the pictures before. Then these things could be in the center of cities and big cities. And as I often say, it could be near to McDonald's. It is not a problem, but the most important thing is to have enough and well-trained staff. And another criteria for me is it must be reachable. All these things, cinema, shops, gym, restaurants, and all these things must be reachable by walking distances, because if not, you always are dependent on staff. So if you develop competences and you can do things by yourself, then you cannot do it because you need someone who drives you to the city and something like this. So this is our criteria, and today it's also the criteria of the government, because the government checks the places where you want to open a new house, and they check if it is reachable by walking distances, and if the bus system, all these things are okay for this place. And an example, what we start in these days for a building with these separate apartments could be something like this, where you see, or I can explain this a little bit. These are separate apartments with their own kitchen, these 4 things, but they also have a room for doing things together. And in this ground floor, there's a separate apartment for people who are not, they live normally here, but they are in very intensive conflict with the others. And maybe then he has a chance to live for a while here. Or someone is going here who is not able to live together with others, but he do not want to live completely by themselves. So this is, I feel it's, in these days, it's a little bit luxurious to have these option to use an apartment like this in the building. On the 2nd floor, you see that there are also apartments, and I think when they live together here, they feel a little bit more like a group. They have their kitchen too, and social room, and on the other side the same. So this could be a model for a house for people with Prader-Willi, but there are, as I described, are much more other ideas of smaller units. So near when you see at the map here, you see the yellow dots, and these are the sheltered workshops. And normally in Germany, we have the situation that near, or if you live in a group home, you get the offer to go to a sheltered workshop. It is a right to have these, but some, and I can explain what they are doing in these sheltered workshops, different things like packaging and metal processing, office duties, laundry, and I think there are some pictures. These are one of our sheltered workshops. It is in the neighborhood of other factories, and it looks for them to go to a normal work, and they drive with a bus from their group home to this place. And another thing, it's in another city. It looks like a factory, and it produces things like in a factory. And so here you can see someone is doing these serial assemblies. This is what you know, I think, in different places, packaging, but drilling on machines, working with machines. It's an important thing for them, and they're proud about their work. You see packaging, and you see this woman here. It is long ago. Today she looks totally different. And maybe some of you have seen her in a video in Cuba for a while. And she was the first woman who was able to do welding work in our shelter workshop. And now it's normal that it is a part of these workshops, but she was the first, and she's the one with Prader-Willi. Laundry, but here you can see someone is handling a CNC milling machine. This is what you know, gardening, or by using a machine, a pet. They do pet printing for these laundry company and so on. So the idea behind this is offer differentiated and individualized jobs for them, so that they can choose and find out what's good for them. And we try to find these 3 of the companies decided to offer no sheltered workshop. They, for example, there is someone who is working like a farm, and people are working at this place. And here in Germany, we have a little bit of discussion about these things. The discussion between, are people with Prader-Willi able to go to a sheltered workshop or not? And this is a discussion, and the result of this is that some decide not to offer sheltered workshops. And they offer these day programs. Another thing is, it is, I think it is consequent that at these places where the children live, that there is a school near to, and they go to these schools, and normally these are special schools for people with intellectual disability, and some of them go to mixed classes with other children with handicaps, and many of the other children which are living at home, we make the experience more and more that we see that they are really in different situations, and at this moment we are not sure what is really the best form or way of schooling for them. Yesterday we heard in one of the presentations in the Caregivers Echo about supporting in school, and I think the important thing is also, like in the group homes, is to train the staff and inform the staff about Prader-Willi. Then maybe many different kind of school forms are able to support people with Prader-Willi. The last thing which we started 5 years ago is this Prader-Willi Institute Germany, which were run by a colleague of mine, Hubert Sawyer, and me, and our portfolio is to offer trainings for staff, training for parents, training for people with Prader-Willi, consulting in group homes, in families, in kindergartens, in clinics, and so on, and offer seminars and conferences and support and do research. And really, over the time, there are more clinics which are able to make diagnostic, and we have specialists in endocrinology and other things here. So it looks good, but if you see this picture, you see that there are spaces in Germany where you have really a problem if you search for a place. And I hope we can develop these things, in the way in the future that we really have an offer for parents all 100 kilometers, so that they do not have to drive more than 100 kilometers. So it's maybe 1.5 hours, not more. What the perspective is to do applied research in cooperation with scientists, universities, providers. And here in Germany, there's no university which is focused on Prader-Willi. We work on this, and we hope we find we can cooperate and engage universities, but it isn't. And what we will do more and more is to exchange the knowledge and build up networks, and here in Germany, but also over borders. What I described was what you can see, and what is the structure, and what are the places, and so on. But if you think about how to take care, so in the meaning of a concept of a group or of taking care of people with Prader-Willi, if in an apartment or in a group home, the concept have to include to describe the target of the group of the people with Prader-Willi which can live there, should live there. Also, you have or we describe exclusion criteria. About the location of the building, I talked about these It must be reachable by in a walking distance. Also, which rooms we use in a house must be a part of the content. And the staff qualification, I will show a slide later. It is, in my mind, it is a very, very important and basic thing. And you have to establish the staff training. Nutrition management is an important thing, but you know that we start with these relative strict handling of food, and today we allow them and we involve them in handling food, and what we see is that they are more and more able, and that food have the chance to get a normal thing like breathing, like walking, like working, and also eating. Physical exercise and PWS is a must-do, and we offer these things and more in clubs, so that they go outside. And we have these gym rooms in our houses, but what we like to do more and more is that they go to other places, that they're in contact with others, and that they make social contacts. And absolutely, we know that these could be a potential of conflicts, but if they do not go in social contact and maybe in conflict, they cannot learn how to handle these conflict things, and so they cannot learn to be self-determined and self-determined and live more and more by their own. And this is our goal. We have to describe the daily and weekly program. So it must be a framework for them. It must be visible and understandable. This is necessary. We have to describe when they are children, how they and how the network working together with the school is, and also with the scheduled workshop. The therapeutical treatment is necessary to describe. I'm happy that we have the situation in our company that we have in each of our group homes or in each of our offers for living, that we have part-time psychologists, so that they support the people with Prader-Willi, but a big task for them is to support the team, to develop the competences of the team, and also being in contact with the parents. And what is the right situation for staff, how many staff we need or what is necessary. And I think at the end, it is good to have the situation, and this is around what we have and what I see, what is possible to handle situation. If you have a situation, maybe there are 6 people in the group home or in an offer, and on the other side you have 6 people in the staff, 6 full-time. And the situation here is often that we have not 6 people which have a full-time job. Often they split, and so we have 10 people in the staff by 6 people with Prader-Willi. So it is possible that at each time not less than 2 people of the staff are there, and this is the minimum, because if there is a conflict, one of the staff can support the conflict and the other can take care and work with the others. If there is only one, then you can only handle the conflict and the others can do what they want. And our experience is that sometimes they handle this situation and they bind the one with the one of the staff who is there, who is only there in the conflict, and the others do what they want. Very well planned. Okay, and the qualification which is helpful and which we can realize is that all people in the staff are doing a study, or like something like a study of 3 years, and they came from a pedagogical field, or pedagogical field and being a nurse, or pedagogical field and being a physical trainer, or and being an expert in nutrition. this is an ideal situation if you have all these competences in one team. And as I said, the extra psychologist hours to support the team. And all of them, they are 3 years educated and have all these, bring in these competences, and all of them have to do PWS specific qualification, the PWS training, and it has 150 hours, and they have to do it in 1 year, and they are in like in a class. And these things, I cannot explain all these things, but introduce the Prader-Willi syndrome with all these aspects. I use 1 day for this module, and another day for behavior analysis, another day for behavior modification, also for communication, 2 days for verbal de-escalation, 1 day, and this is what I did today with Constanze Lemmer, the nutrition management, physical exercise, sensory integration, case study supervision, neuropsychology. These are the things which we do in modules and in 1 or 2 days. Then they have a group supervision. They go in the second field. If they work in a group home, they go and they support children. They go 2 days in school to see what happens there, or 2 days in the sheltered workshop. And on the other end, the people from the sheltered workshops go 2 days in the group home. So the communication between them will be better. And what we also do is that the psychologists and the people from the workshop and from the group homes have to do this PWS training. The situation here in Germany is, and I know it is very different in parts of the world, but here in Germany the situation is that people with handicaps are financed mostly by tax money, by money which is coming from the government. It is nearly 100% financed by them. But other sources could be maybe in other countries too, Ministry of Social Affairs, Ministry of Health, and all the other ministries. We use not so much, but we use foundations and we use private financing for special things we do in the group homes, or we will realize in the group homes. Okay, this is the situation of the offer of living and working and going to school in Germany, and a little bit special in the company I'm working for. And the idea for this presentation is to use a little bit time for what is special in the time of the pandemic and what changes. And what I did is I asked all of our group homes, and up to now we have these 6 group homes or office for adults and these 2 for children, and what they and I talk about 75 people with Prader-Willi overall, what we see is that a low number of people with Prader-Willi are infected, only 8 of 75, and none of them have severe symptoms. Most of them are without symptoms. The situation of the vaccination is all of them who once are vaccinated, and the vaccination have, as a consequence, have some mild symptoms we saw by them, but most of them which are vaccinated are without symptoms. Other things I asked were what happens with a situation, and what makes it easy for you, or are there positive or negative things which comes from Corona and all the things which happened with them. Many of them say when the situation was unclear and there were fast changing information about handling the pandemic from the government or from the company, that was the most important stress for people with PWS. And I think in a consequence, because it was also the most stressing part for the staff and also for the parents. So it was a situation that nobody knows what is the right thing to do today. And when parents want to come in the group home, is it allowed and what they have to do? And it was a situation here in Germany, it changed sometimes very fast, and the information are sometimes very early, very late. And so this makes really stress. On the other hand, over the time, and I think it's more than it's around 1.5 years, what we see is over the time is that the people with Prader-Willi developed a more flexibility. The competence of flexibility increased. And you know that this is one of the symptoms of Prader-Willi, the lower competence of flexibility. And when I asked the staff, what do you think is a reason for this? Most of them, or I think all of them, said it depends on the explanation and the quality of explanation we do. And we talk and we are transparent and we say the truth to them. And what they say is we include them, we are transparent, and this is what helps them to accept the situation. And another thing was interesting, people with PWS have less stress or less conflict in this time. And what they say and what the staff also said is, we think, and people say that we feel on the same level as the staff are, because the people from the staff said, I also cannot go to my friend or to my uncle or to my father, because people with Prader-Willi say, I want to go home, and why can't I go home? And they realize that they are in the same position as the staff, as the people without handicaps. And maybe this, and I think this is the situation, that it gives them a feeling of equality. I hope you understand what I mean. Another thing was very interesting. We had the situation that the scheduled workshops were closed over sometimes for 6 weeks or for 2 months or more. And what we expect was that we have big problems with the people because they do not know what to do, they have too much free time, they cannot organize themselves. And this was a situation for some, that they lose their framework. But also it depends on the way the staff are able to handle this situation. But an interesting thing was that we see by not so less number of people that they come down and that they are calmer and that they have less conflicts than in the situation when they go to a shelter workshop. And as a consequence, and we discussed this, and as a consequence, we start a process together with the workshop so that we discuss different or a differentiation of the working modules, the times when they go. Maybe we have splitting things or something like this. And really, it was a consequence to start this thinking by the pandemic, and under this topic of overburdening, maybe. Another thing was that not less people of the staff or the group homes described that they see that the conflicts or the problems in the group homes were not so many as expected, and the increasing of flexibility. So we saw problematic situations, absolutely, but we saw many positive developments, which we not expected. But on the other hand, the group, the people from the staff, but also in my consultation process I do with families, what I see is that families have not so much resources than group homes. And in these situations, also parents, which I'm in contact with, they describe that it is a very hard time for them and that they see often an increasing of conflict situation and an overwhelming of the system at home. So this is really a difference between these two situations, what we saw. And special to the caregivers, there was I think to work and to support people with Prader-Willi is a challenging task. But in these times of the pandemic, there comes an extra stressing point to them, and some of them described it very intensive. And what they say is they are fearful about their own health situation. So some staff describes it today. She said, I cannot make in this situation when some of them are infected, I cannot make not one mistake by supporting the infected by myself. And this, near to all the tasks I have, was a really extra stress, which she said she realized after the pandemic, after the infection and quarantine situation was over. But she said it was really intensive physical, psychological or psychic stress for her extra. These are the things which staff or people with Prader-Willi or parents describe, which influence the work and the taking care of people, or change the work of taking care with people with Prader-Willi in the pandemic situation. And I hope I could describe that these are not only stressing things. I think we can develop positive inputs and inputs of this time. And so I hope during the presentation you get a small overview or get a feeling of the situation which we have in Germany and how it develops over the last 25 years. But I also said, and I hope you understand, there are many things to do in the future. On the basic of the fundamental attitudes, I hope we can go on to develop the offers in Germany. So thank you very much for listening. And next time, I hope we can be in a direct contact and can have questions in between. It makes it easier for you and it makes it nicer for me to be in contact. So I think we have not so much, but some minutes for questions.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful and very informative to learn about how things are done in different countries. There were a lot of individuals were interested in the workshops and things about compensation and whether or not individuals with PWS are financially compensated, and if they are, how is that managed in their lifestyle, and are they paid comparably to people who do those jobs who do not have Prader-Willi syndrome?
So this is the question, how it works in Germany when they go to the sheltered workshop. Yes, of course. So the system of the sheltered workshop is that the staff is paid by the government, but the money the people with Prader-Willi gets, this is something what they have to finance by selling the products. But this is what the sheltered workshop do, and not the one with Prader-Willi. And the money, it depends a little bit on the philosophy of the sheltered workshops. There are some sheltered workshops in Germany which paid up to 400, 500, or 600 euros for the people who are working there. In the sheltered workshops, like in ours, where very severe handicapped people are working and they are productive, their productive competences are less, Then we have a minimum which they get around 100 euros per month, but the highest amounts are, I think, around 200, 250. So this is a little bit a socialized system, yeah, and therefore it depends. But on the other hand, the money they get from certain workshop, this is their, I think 80% of these things are their private things.
Okay, and they had similar questions about the staff. I mean, you have a lot of requirements for staff, and they wanted to know if they were paid well for these jobs, and if it was comparable as well.
Yeah, I think the situation is that if you work in an industrial company, the chances to get rich is much better than in the social area, but they are 3 years educated, and the payment for these people in the staff, I think in my mind it is good. So we have staff over 20, 30, 40 years, maybe over their whole lives when they work in this field of taking care. In our PWS group homes, we have some which are there since 15, 16, 18 years in the same group home, working with PWS. So I think it's okay, but it's nothing to be a millionaire.
Sure, sure. So a question about children. Do all children with PWS go to schools for intellectual disability, or do some attend school with the general public or typically developing children?
Yes, more and more. And so over the last 5, 6 years in Germany, the system changed intensive. And so they tried to close the specialized schools and include these. And so by this process, more and more are in all the kind of schools we have in Germany. But at the end, I think it depends on the knowledge of the teachers, if it works or not.
Okay, fantastic. So one more question. What kind of support do you have for adults with PWS if they do not live in a group home?
These are the supports like consultation in the family. And yeah, this is the main thing, but it is not well developed in Germany, I think. So we have only 2 or 3 places in Germany where parents can get these support. And the distance for families is too long, and to wait for a meeting. And so it's not well developed. I think the group homes are more developed, and the system of the group homes than the consultant. And I think more or less it is the only qualified support we have in Germany, only these 2 or 3 places. Maybe some others live in their own apartment and get support by pedagogical staff, but these are normally not informed about PWS.
Very good. Well, that's the questions that we have. Maybe I think we need to wrap up. If Dr. Locher has any questions for you, thank you so much. It was a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Excellent job. Again, similar situation, it sounds like, to what we had just heard about in Denmark. It's also very interesting that, again, that the group homes seem to get a lot less problem behavior during the pandemic. They didn't get the illness that we were really afraid of and everything like that. But again, very, very interesting. I want to thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay.